I didn't even know what tzitzis was because we grew up to know that we're staying away from them. They're weird. Don't even get involved. I was on a mission to prove that there's no God in the world. Everything is scientific. Has a proof. It's all these miracle stories are nothing but voodoo and the way to charm the masses in order to control them. After I talked to him and I told him I'm ready to keep Shabbat, I'm ready to learn. It wasn't long before the fury and the anger started building up on me. I felt like I was lied to for 33 years. I was so angry. I said, how didn't I not know that?
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, we have Ayella Rosen, who has an incredible personal journey story, a journey to finding her true self. And on the way, she actually found her true soulmate as well, who had an incredible story himself. So she's going to join us and tell us all about her story. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ayella.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start with your background. You're born in Israel.
Yeah. I was born in a city named Rehovot to a Yemenite father and Ashkenaz mother that came from a Holocaust surviving family. And then when I was 3, we moved to Ashdod, which is not far from there. And I grew up in Ashdod, which was divided by then, at the time, to mostly secular Jews and very, very little concentrated area of really Hasidic Jews. And I grew up there just about the age of 30. I mean, that's where I used to live.
And what role did religion or Judaism play in your life?
Almost none at all. My dad, on my mom's behalf, it was total absent. There was the traditional holidays, like you light them in around Hanukkah, and you do fast in Kippur, but you don't know why until you hear the shofar. On my dad's behalf, he insisted to do kiddush on Fridays, but that's where it stopped. The TV was on, everything was on. We used to sit and do the kiddush itself. We didn't do a motzi. I mean, he did do a motzi, but we didn't wash or anything. We didn't know about that. It was kiddush, then a motzi lechem min haaretz, and that's it. No birkat hamazon, no nothing. We just didn't know. It was
No
symbolic.
blessings, no nothing. It was
No,
just like a family meal, right?
yeah.
And what kind of person were you at the time? Were you seeking anything? Were you, what was your attitude to
Well,
Judaism?
the funny part was that the way that we were raised in that area, not only by my parents, but most of the Jews that lived around me, we were growing up not knowing anything. They kind of like implement in us subconsciously that we're Jews by nationality. It's a religion, but we don't practice it anymore. And there is a small amount of people that do, but we don't want to get involved with them because they're fanatics. We just create a barrier and that's it. So the irony is that literally next to me, a few blocks next to me, there was a really, really religious Hasidic, I think it was Hasidut, that were next to me, but I didn't even know what tzitzis was because we grew up to know that we're staying away from them. They're weird. Don't even get involved. So apart from the like just keeping the customs just to remind us that we're Jews and we were almost were wiped out in the Holocaust, so we should keep our Judaism. Apart from that, nothing. I went to a secular school, 12 grades of secular school where they taught the Bible, Tanakh. It wasn't Torah. And they totally, I mean, later on in life, I understood that they totally twisted everything. And I just grew up to learn that, the Torah, I didn't know, I didn't even know that it's called Torah back then. The Tanakh is something that was written by people and because it was transferred from father to son, and they started to forget, so they put it in writing.
Mm.
All this idea that it was given by God was no, it was
It's too fanatical.
yeah.
Did you believe in God?
I don't know. I mean, when you're young, you can't really choose. I didn't know what
Mhm.
it is,
Mhm.
but then as I grew up and I reached my teenage years and further on, then my mom came from a very high intellectual European family. So the mentality was that, religion is just a brainwash. Your power in the
Mhm.
world is intellect and knowledge, and you should stay away from all these cult
Mhm.
ideas that trying to grab you like a spider into his web. So uh, until later age in life, I was either oblivious to the idea, and later on totally anti the idea. Once I started earning my higher education, my bachelor degree, then the brain is dressing up everything that you learn on your life.
Mm.
So I started to believe in the paradigm that religion is just a brainwash, like the Catholic Church that I used to learn about, that used to
Mhm.
prevent from people to learn read and write in order to control them. And that's what I started to preach once I had a little bit of mind.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. So you thought it was like nonsense and you would tell people that and you tried
yeah.
to convince people not to believe in it,
Yeah,
right?
I was on a mission. I was on a mission to prove that there's no God in the world. Everything is scientific. Has a proof. It's all these miracle stories are nothing but voodoo and the way to charm the masses in order to control them. And I used to sit with religious people, and my tongue is very sharp. So I used to sit with them and just argue and about a thing that I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm so sharp that I could manipulate my way through that to the point where they just gave up and just left the argument.
Right. Wow. Wow. So interesting. So what happened? Like what changed? Well, tell us how your story progresses. You
So
you
so
third so
so this is how I grew up, and secular life, you go to the idea. If you serve in the idea, if you get in even further and further from the idea of God. And then after the military service, I went to do my high studies. I went to a college and learned even more so about science and like social studies and all of that. And um, and I reached the age of 30, and for a secular single woman, 30 years old, living in Israel, Israel is very small. I couldn't find myself. Nothing seemed, I mean, you have no purpose. I didn't know what's the meaning of life. What am I doing here? And at the time, of course, it was the time of all the bus bombing and, like high level terror attacks. So Israel started to be very, very suffocating. I wanted to find a different avenue. I was 30 years old. I was single. So I said, okay, let me go to America and try my
Mhm.
luck in the kiosks. Back then, the kiosks was like a big thing. Everybody went to work in the kiosks. So I wanted an adventure. I was very bored, so I bought a
like in
ticket.
the in the shopping malls, the
Yeah,
kiosks.
yes,
Yeah.
selling Dead
Uh-huh.
Sea products, hair straighteners products, and I bought a ticket. I had a friend that I knew that lived in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I came there with a friend, which who later on left, but that's where I started. And the minute that I landed there, literally the day that I landed, I met another Israeli guy, a little bit younger than me. We fell in love. We dated for 2.5 years while I'm working and doing big bucks in the malls, in the shopping malls. The relationship was very abusive. It went on a wrong direction entirely. And at some point, we moved to Boston, and Boston was a little bit more expensive than Little Rock, so we started to be financially stressed, and that
Mhm.
that basically uh, terminated the relationship. It ended really, really bad, and And I used to we build a company of our own, me and him, but he was in control of everything. So
Mhm.
basically, I used to work 7 days a week, 11 hours on my feet. And it's funny
Mm.
because before we left Boston, just in the last few weeks of or couple of months of in Little Rock, we met a couple that were engaged, and they weren't religious, but they did keep Shabbat. And I remember
Mm.
every Friday I used to. They became good friends of ours, and I used to see them closing the kiosk before Shabbat while I'm staying and working. And I remember that even though I was very anti, more than once I thought to myself, "Oh, that can be nice," going home, do
Mhm.
kiddush like back home, And I tried to speak with it with my previous fiance, but to no avail. He wouldn't hear about it. He wanted the
Mhm.
money, so it never came to fruition.
So you thought of it more as like a nice event rather than
Yeah,
something that you believe in though, right?
yeah, it's it.
Wow.
Yeah, like old memories from back home, like Friday night meal. He used to comfort me by taking me to Applebee's to have a cake and a coffee. Right,
Right.
I didn't,
Wow.
I don't know. But in Boston, it ended up really bad. I don't know if you want me to specify, but it was very violent, and it happened literally a few months after we moved to Boston. I met a girl that was a single mother for a child, and she had another kiosk in the shopping mall, and we became friends. She's Israeli, very rough, very street smart, and she saw what's going on. She tried to enlighten
She
my
saw what's going on in your relationship with your
eyes.
ex-husband.
Yeah, she
Mhm.
tried to open my eyes, but I was totally blind. I couldn't hear. I was in total denial, and eventually I managed to escape, and she gave me a refuge in her house.
Mhm.
And she wasn't religious, but she was very traditional. At the time, she kept Shabbat, only Shabbat, and you know she gave me a home basically for several months, and I used to eat with them, and she used to host a lot of people. It was very nice. I got my Shabbat dinners with friends. It
Uh-huh.
was super nice. She tried to influence me into do a little bit more, but I was totally anti. Every time she told me, why don't you come to shore with me, like it's very nice and there's single men there, maybe you'll meet somebody. I was like, nope. Don't even take me there. Forget about it. I'm going to the beach. I'm going to a restaurant. I'm meeting friends. This is my day off. Forget about it. I don't want to hear anything. She couldn't influence me. Yeah.
Right. Wow. So were you happy at that time? Like, were you settled? Or are you still, like,
No,
longing or you s no, you
no,
weren't?
there was something missing all the time. I did a lot of fun, like I lived life, or so I thought, but there was always something missing. Deep down inside, I was very miserable. I didn't know why. I felt lonely. I felt like I'm just drifting in the world with no purpose. I didn't know what this all means. I had a lot of questions, but they never came out. It always came out as argument and anti, and
Mhm.
like I didn't want to deal with it.
Mhm. Mhm. Like, questions on your meaning and your purpose of
Yeah,
life
yeah.
and which right, and you didn't know where to find those answers, so you
Nope.
just argued with whatever Judaism said.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. It's funny that I never tried to find it in different religions, or
Mhm.
I never became spiritual in order to. I just did. I shut down this area in my life entirely. I didn't want to know anything about spirituality. I tried to fill it up with like materialistic and like enjoyments and possessions and stuff, but never spiritual. I
Hmm.
don't know, as if I
Interesting.
was afraid that if I'm gonna open that, it's like a rabbit hole.
Right, which I guess it was,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you opened it.
right.
Right. Interesting. So then what happens?
So one day she calls me
So
to
you're
show.
still living by this lady's home?
No, so I lived with her for a month or two, and then because she had a kiosk of her own, and I was a very good salesperson, so we decided to work together. I was her main employee, And I used to work with her all week. On Friday, I get off early, and then either I spend Shabbat with her and her son, and having dinner and friends, or I just stay home. And then one
Mhm.
day, I stayed home, and she said before Shabbat, she called me and she said, "Hey, why don't you come? There's an Israeli Persian family in Boston. We're still in Boston, that is cooking wonderful Persian food. You should come. You should have lunch." And like my defenses already went up. And I said, "Nope, I know what you're planning. Forget about it. I'm scheduled to go to the beach. I have plans. I'm going to shopping afterwards." And she really tried to convince me. She said, "Listen, it's great food and they're so funny and they have guests every Shabbat and it's so fun." I said, "No, you're not gonna put this religious stuff in my head. You're trying to manipulate me. Forget about it." And then she said, "Listen, you're gonna go to a restaurant anyway. This is free Persian food, authentic
Mm.
Persian food. They come from Persia. Come eat and then go to the beach." I said, "Okay, fine, I'll join you." We did. Now I didn't know that the father is Israeli. They're all Israelis, but he's smarter than me, and he's there bringing people into shuva. He's like like he's working with
Mhm.
them. I didn't know that at the time. So we did go to that lunch, and it was amazing. Long table, many guests. It was fun. I was very impressed. It's, I think, maybe one of the first times that I actually saw a whole family Shabbat setting. It was very. I have to say I was very impressed. It did something,
Mhm.
but of course I'm
Mhm.
very stubborn. I didn't give up. And he's starting to give his Dvar Torah on the table and lunch, and I'm
Words of Torah. Mhm.
yeah, and I'm starting to, I'm starting to bringing up all my, like my arsenal, like starting to
Mhm.
prepare myself. And indeed, the table was full of guests, and we ended up that me and him on the table are arguing. Him in favor of God and the Torah, and me against it. And I'm bringing all my weapons and all my scientific proof, and I will prove to you that everything is science and what you say is nonsense, and I can prove everything. And then he said, after everybody left and I stayed, he said, "Listen, you're very smart and you have very high intellect, but if you really want to continue this argument, you have to learn and study the other side." And I knew that
Mm.
he's right, because as a true scientist or intellectual person, I knew that it's not going to be long until like I have to learn the other side. I can't keep up
Right.
making up stuff. So I said, "Okay, what do you have in mind?" So he said, "Listen, you're not working on Shabbat anyway. I have a book for you. Take the book, read it next Shabbat, and tell me what you think about it." The book was one of the best books I've ever read, obviously. It's called The Coming Revolution by Rav Zamir Cohen. And Rav Zamir Cohen is the CEO of the biggest Kiruv organization, outreach organization in Israel. And this rabbi understood that today you can't preach to people to believe in God. It's not the Magid times. You can't tell them if you're not going to believe Hashem or practice the Torah, you're going to have really bad results. You knew that
Mhm.
people are smarter than that. You need to meet them where they are arguing in.
Mhm.
So he went all around the world, met with a lot of scientists and social workers, all of them non Jews, and proved that whatever the world knows today, the Torah knew before. And that's the book
Mhm.
that he gave me. And I said, "Okay, fine, I'll read it." And the next Shabbat, I sat, as I promised, and read the book cover to cover in 4 hours. And he just answered all my all my questions.
Great questions.
Yep.
Wow.
I closed the book,
Like
and I said,
like what kind of questions did it answer?
everything.
Give us an example.
How the world was created, proof, the proof to the proof. I mean, the proof to the scientific proof that says that the Red Sea was opened. The science tried to
Mhm.
explain it, so he shows
Mhm.
otherwise. He brings a quote from the Torah about different health situations, like pregnancies, the 40 days that you can, after 40 days, all of this science that science really proud of. He shows one
Mhm.
by one theory after the other, that it appears in the Torah before that. Now I'm
Mhm.
at the time, I'm a science person. I love science.
Mm,
Researchers, and I see everything that I learned in the book, and I see
mhm,
that this book that is called the Torah is proving it 3,000 years before that, and I'm like,
mm.
okay, that's kind of like a that bothered me.
Right.
It's like the doubt came in, and I was like, wait. So everything that I believed in and learned until today is not really established. It's just theories. They don't have proof. But
Mm,
here, this guy is actually proving everything. The book
mm,
is full of proofs. I sat there and I closed the book and I said, that actually makes sense. Everything that I read
mm,
just makes sense. Now I had a
mm.
problem because I can't lie to myself. Like I have a doubt. So I said, okay, I think that I'm ready. And Motzei Shabbat, when Shabbat left, I called to that guy and I said, okay, I'm ready. How do I keep the Shabbat? I'm ready to
Wow.
learn. Yeah,
Wow. Isn't that interesting? It's interesting because most people don't, most people get close to Judaism based on their relationships with other people, not the actual, like, arguments that they have, but
right,
here it was the arguments that you were holding on to. That's,
right.
very interesting.
Yeah,
So you started keeping Shabbat. I'm sure your life changed very drastically at that time.
yes. I mean, in 4 hours, I went from one extreme to the other. After I talked to him and I told him I'm ready to keep Shabbat, I'm ready to learn, it wasn't long before the fury and the anger started building up on me. I
Mm,
felt like I was lied to for 33 years. I was so
mhm,
angry. I said, how didn't I not know that? I mean, I lived in Israel. I lived next to
mm,
religious people. How can it even be that I don't know that? What, oh, they
mm,
lied to me. I was so angry, and there was 33 years of a gap to catch up.
to catch
So
up.
yeah, and my soul was so hungry that I just couldn't stop learning. I learned everything, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and
Jewish code of law.
yeah, a Jewish code of law, and guard your tongue, and all of these big rabbeim, the Ben Ish Chai and the Chafetz Chaim. So much so that within less than 6 months, I knew half of the Jewish code law. Right, I say it right. Jewish code law by
Code
almost
of code of law.
yeah,
Mhm.
almost by heart. Like
Really? Wow.
this guy used to exam me, test me to see if I remember the
Really?
laws, and I did. I learned all the laws because I had to cover the gap
Were
of
you doing it
learning.
too quickly? Did you feel you were doing it too fast,
No,
that it was too much? No,
no,
for you, it was good because most
yes,
people, you say, take it step by step, take it
yeah,
one thing at a time, don't go too fast or you'll regress, but
right.
you were just so thirsty for it, I guess.
Yeah, and I also felt that I wasted so much time. I mean,
Right,
the main
right.
thought was I don't know how long I'm gonna live, and here I
Mhm.
was third of my life was gone by a lie, so I need to
Mm.
catch up fast. So,
Wow. So catch up you did.
yeah,
You did. And so then what happened? So you started keeping a lot of the Torah, the
yeah,
laws of the Torah, the mitzvot,
yeah.
and did your life get better?
They did. I found meaning. I was very purposeful. It was great, and
What did you see your meaning as, like, at when you found mitzvot?
I
How did you see your
I
life
had a
being more
mission.
meaningful?
I had a mission. My main purpose was to establish this relationship with this God that I denied for so long. I need to establish a really strong relationship with Him. And how do I do that? I learn a lot. I go to shul every week. I talk to people. I ask. I research everything that I did on the other side. I did on the
Mm,
Torah side, and it was
mhm.
fascinating because it was so interesting. I never learned this material, and the material was just majestic. It just smitten me. So it was.
What was, like, especially interesting for you, or what was it that smit you said it smit you, like, in what way?
I
How was it so amazing for you?
the logic. It was very
Mm,
logic from keeping Shabbat, why we keeping Shabbat, why we keeping kosher, the biblical, the Torah science behind the Exodus and all the miracles. Everything had an explanation. Now, whether
mm,
it's the true explanation or not, I don't know. Only Hashem knows. But it just made sense. Every question that
mm,
I asked made sense.
Mhm.
And it was great. It was like doing my bachelor degree all over again, only on the other
Well,
side.
was there a special mitzvah that you related to or that you didn't relate to that was hard for you?
Well, I at the time I couldn't and didn't learn about like a relationship between a man and a woman mitzvot, because I was still single, and this area has been kept to people who are about to get married. So the kashrut, for example, the kosher food laws, they made absolutely sense to me. The Shabbat was amazing. I
Mm,
mean, my family, I grew up in a family that wasn't so tightly close. It was mainly kind of like, for us, it was more European intellectual family.
mm,
So all of a sudden, I'm in this world that the family sits together and everybody's together and people help each other. And it's just like one community. It was amazing. I found a home. It was
mhm.
incredible. And for a single woman living in United States by herself, it
Right.
was just a safe haven.
You felt a connection and a safe haven.
Yeah.
Beautiful, really beautiful. So, at the same time, while you're going through this journey, your future husband was also going through a journey. You wanna tell us a little about him and
Yeah.
his
So
story?
I don't know Yakov at this point. Okay. At this point, it's still Jay. He was born in Puerto Rico. He was born to a family with 12 children. He's the second oldest. And his mother is spiritual, but his father basically didn't want to talk about religion in the house at all. They never talked about religion, even though his mother is pretty spiritual, but they never talked about religion in the house. And when he was 3 or 4 years old, they moved to the States. And at some point, when he was, if I remember correctly, around 16 or so, I think it was Hurricane Katrina, or one of the big hurricanes is hitting the house that they lived, totally destroyed the city. I think it was in Michigan. No, it was in Florida.
Mm,
Totally destroyed everything. His parents and his brothers and sisters going back to Puerto Rico, and he decides to stay and join the Navy. So he joined
mm,
the American Navy at the age of 17. And but the interesting part is that even though he grew up in Puerto Rico, Florida, Michigan, to a family that never spoke religion in the house, no, not even spirituality, he told me that ever since he was 9 years old, he was always on the search. He wanted to
mm,
find God. He didn't know what God was, but he was determined to find this entity that's called God and create a relationship. And at the time, he was young, so he didn't have a lot of means. So the only avenue that he could go to is a church. But his father always told him, never go to a church. They're only going to confuse you, and you'll have questions and they're not going to answer, and you're going to come out messed up with it. I forbid you to go to a church. So he
mm,
didn't. But when he was 14, he had for the first time a sleepover with his friend at his friend's house. Usually they didn't have it. And his friend told him the next morning, come, let's go to a church. And he knew that his father won't allow it. So he never told him, but he did. And in the
mm,
beginning, he liked it. He really liked it. It was very spiritual. It gave him some answers about some issues. And he really thought that that was the relationship that he should, create with the Shem. But then, I mean, with God. But then the questions started to come up. They couldn't answer his questions. His father discovered that he went to a church that went really bad for him, because his father was furious, and this is where it was cut off. So upon asking his mother about God, he asked his mother, what should I do? I mean, how will I find this God? So she said, okay, so you have to remember there is a God. Who is, what it is, it doesn't matter. Just be a good person, create a relationship with them, walk the world as a good soul, and that's it. And and this is going to be a relationship. And this is what he did. But when he joined to the Navy, a new avenue opened, because now he's on a ship and he's traveling
mm,
all over the world, and he can meet other religions. Judaism was never on the scale. He thought that Judaism was a way of life, like I don't know, like being a vegan or something.
Mhm.
The only thing that he knew about
Just a lifestyle, not
yes,
really a
lifestyle.
religion, not a really a belief. Mhm.
Right. The only thing that he knew about religion is they used to teach them in schools about the Holocaust. So he knew that the
Mhm.
Jews were like, I don't know, like the gypsies. They were, like
Mhm.
persecuted and stuff like that. But that's all he knew. And that's it. And this is where it started and this is where it ends. Later on in life, he told me that um, at the time when he was a child, every spring break, which happens around April, his brothers and sisters used to run out to play, and he refused. He always stayed indoors. Why? Because every April there was a special movie that is broadcasted in on TV about this guy and the 12 commands and this place. He never understood it, but he just sat every year and watched the movie for 4 hours. Of course, I'm talking about the Ten Commandments with Charles Aston. And his
Uh-huh.
brother used to mock him. He used to say, "Come on, we want to watch TV. Stop with that movie already. Every year you watch it." He never let go. He always told them, "You have the TV all year round. I just want this movie. That's it, once a year." And
Yeah.
he never knew why. But when
Something intrigued him. He didn't understand why, though.
yeah, but
Mm.
when he was on the ship, so he started investigating, like Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity, of course, and all of these religions, but nothing made sense. He just
Mm.
couldn't find the answer. So he just took his mother advice. He said, "Okay, fine, it is what it is. I'll just create some relationship with God. I'll be a good person, and that's it." And
Mhm.
this is how it went. At some point, his ship did dock in the port of Haifa. He was
Mhm.
supposed to unload and go to Haifa, which would, if he would have, he would probably learn about Judaism more. But of
Mhm.
course, God had different plans because once they docked, my husband got a really bad case of stomach virus, so bad that they had to flew him back to the States.
Oh, wow.
So this
So
is
he
the
never got a
beginning.
chance to dock in Israel at all. He never got a chance to see it.
No, and then he went to nursing school. He almost finished it to become a nurse in hospitals. Then his sister, who was a chiropractor, told him about chiropractic, so he decided to switch over to chiropractic, being a chiropractor. He started learn studying in Life University in Atlanta.
That's back in s oh, in Atlanta,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
And he left the Navy and he continued to study in Life University. At this point, he was already he got married in the age of 19, had two
Mm,
children, got divorced, and at this point,
mm,
he lives in Atlanta, and his children and their mother are living in Florida, and his children are very young. His daughter was, I think, 14, and his son was 12, something like that. And he's in Atlanta studying chiropractic, and this is where, for the first time, he got acquainted with Judaism. He had Jewish friends.
mm.
So,
Gee.
occasionally his Jewish friends used to tell him, "Hey, listen, there's a really big party in town. We need to go to that. Would you like to join us?" He said, "Okay, sure, great. I'm going to join you." And they take him to this party. And in this party, there's like nice donuts that they give away. And there's like
Mm,
this nice candelabra that they light in. And everybody's dancing and boys talking with girls. And he enters there. And his friends were, like they were secular. So they went, to talk with friends and eat, like the donuts and all of that. But when he entered and he saw the candelabra, the menorah of Hanukkah, right? That was
mm,
Hanukkah, the holiday of Hanukkah. He said that then he started to get interested. Like, that's interesting. I never knew that Judaism is a religion, and that looks really nice. But
mm,
that's it. It was like it just brushed off of him, and that's it. And then, at some point, they had a seminar in Florida, and he flew there to have the seminar while he was a student because his sister was a chiropractor told him, while you're a student, take as many seminars as you can because later on as a doctor it's going to cost a lot of money, so take advantage. So he took every
mhm,
single seminar that was offered, and at some point him and his friend flew to Florida for a seminar. And he said, "Okay, so I'll see my children also. I'll pick them up and they like to learn, so I'll take them with us." And that girl, that friend, she tells him, after they pick up his children, she tells him, "Hey, listen, before we go to the seminar, there's something really, really important that I need to do. Um, and we have to make one stop because it's very important. and then we can continue to the seminar. So he said, okay, no problems. And they're going to this place with his children, and she tells him, they drive in the car, she tells him, hey, the place is right there, but let's park here. And he tells her, wait, but there's a whole parking lot there. Why are we parking so far? She says, this is what we're doing. Let's just park here. Okay. So he parks away. And then before they enter, she says, oh, by the way, in this place, the girls have to wear skirts. So do you mind if we'll go buy a dress for your daughter? He asked his daughter. She said, okay, fine. They went and bought a dress. So they're about to come in. And she tells him, oh, and another thing, you're going to have to separate from your daughter. I'll go with her to one side and you'll go with your son to another side and we'll meet after that. He's like, what are you talking about? So when they entered, he saw there was like a big dividing, like a room divider in the middle. And the men were on the right side and the women were on the left side. And like, what is going on here? So he asked his daughter, he said, do you mind going with her and do whatever they do? She says, okay, fine. So they split. He went to the shelf. He took this book that is written in weird language that he never knew. And there's the English translation. So him and his son are trying to imitate everybody and do what they do. And all of a sudden, he says, all of a sudden, I heard this huge sound, like really, really strong sound. And I'm like, my soul popped out of my body. I was like, what is that? What is that noise? He said, I was trembling. Something awakened me. I didn't know what it was. And I looked to the front of the room, and there was like this old guy with a beard, and he was making this sound with a horn, and it shook me, and I looked everywhere around me, and everybody were just sitting like nothing is happening. I said, what is going on here? Why is that? Don't they hear that? Like, what's going on here? He was so shaken up. So at the end of the service, he went to the front and he went to that guy and said, wow, what was that? What did you do? So the guy said, I'm a rabbi, and this is a horn, and today is the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, so we blow the horn, and this and that. So my husband told him, okay, I'm not Jewish, but this is so interesting. How can I learn more? So the rabbi told him, where are you from? He said, I'm from Atlanta. So he said, well, you have a baby in Atlanta. So my husband says, really? There's more like you? So he said, yeah, there's rabbis everywhere. Just go back home and ask about it. So
Wow.
he went to his friend and he said, do you know what a rabbi is? She said, yeah, of course I do. We're here. There's a rabbi. She said, how didn't you tell me about it? She said, I don't know. Usually I don't come here. And that's it. They went to the seminar as nothing. And when they flew back to Atlanta, he went to his Jewish friends and he asked them, do you know what a rabbi is? And they said, of course we do. We're Jewish. So he said, can you take me to one? So they said, well, there's this rabbi that gives interesting classes to young adults like us. We go every Wednesday. It's very interesting. You can come with us, and we'll introduce you. He said, okay, I want. Now that was in 2009. In 2009, I landed in the United States.
Oh,
Totally
wow, that was when you
secular.
landed. Wow.
Yeah.
That was when you came. That was when you landed in Arkansas.
Yes.
Little Rock,
And I'm
Arkansas.
living the
Okay.
life, and he's just now meeting this
Wow.
rabbi. The rabbi was Rabbi Carmi Inber from Atlanta. And he's an outreach, well, back in the days when he used to live in Atlanta, he was an outreach rabbi. And they took him every Wednesday. They used to come every Wednesday, and he's very interesting. He's talking about the biblical history and the different sages, and very interesting stories. At some point, so for the first Wednesday that he came, my husband went to him after the class, and he said, wow, that's so interesting. I want to learn more. I'm not Jewish, but it's super interesting. Can I continue coming to your classes? So the rabbi can't really invite him because he was not Jewish at the time. So the rabbi says, listen, I'm here every Wednesday. I'm teaching Jews. So my husband took it as a yes. So he started coming every Wednesday, addictively. And his friends already left, like one by one, like the dropped off.
Right.
Like every week another friend is in absence, like until they didn't come anymore. And one Wednesday when they didn't want to come anymore, my husband said, okay, so nobody wants to go anymore, and it's just me. Should I go? Should I not? Okay, I guess I'll go. And he went. And the rabbi asked him, "Where's your friends?" And he said they didn't want to come anymore. So, but I can I come? Can I come? So the rabbi says, "Listen, I'm here every Wednesday. I'm teaching Jews." So my husband says, "Okay, you don't say yes, you don't say no. I'm still coming."
Wow.
And
Wow.
this went on for a whole year. He just continued going every Wednesday for a whole year. And
Did he feel he was learning there more about what he was seeking as a 9-year-old boy, about his purpose and his mission and his relationship with God? This is
definitely,
where he felt the answers. Wow.
yeah, the more the weeks went by, the more he felt that this is the way of life that he wants to live. But of course, he didn't
Mhm.
know about conversion at the time. And he
Mm.
did come to the rabbi and ask him, "Hey, I mean, I'm really interested in this way of life. You know, like the rabbi didn't answer, of course. Everything's vague. We don't touch it yet." But then at a certain point, the rabbi started teaching about a convert.
Mm.
Could be Rabbi Akiva or some convert. So my husband came to him and said, "You just taught us about a convert. That means I can convert to Judaism. I really
Mm.
think that I want to live this way. I think that's my purpose in life." And the rabbi says, "No, no, we don't do that anymore. That's the old days, thousands of years ago. We don't convert anymore." So my husband said, "Okay, can I still come? I'm here, if you want." Okay. So he continued to come. But as he went on, he keeps hearing about more and more converts every
Mm.
week. So he comes to the Rav and he says, "Listen, you told me that we can't convert, but you can convert, but I keep hearing about converts. So what's going on here?" "No, listen, you don't want that. Listen, you're a non-Jew. You have your own sets of mitzvahs that you need to do. It's called Noachai. You do your job, we do ours, and this is how the world runs." Okay, but my husband already knew that something is boiling here.
Mm.
It can't be the
This is
answer.
something that he wants.
Yeah,
Right.
so at some point he came to my rabbi, to a rabbi, and he told him, "Listen, I know that you keep saying that you can convert me, but I think that you can, and I think that I
Mm.
can, and if you're not going to
Right.
convert me, I'm just going to go somewhere else, and they will. So either you help me or you're not." So then our rabbi understood that he's serious, and he said, "Okay, so we have to sit and have a chat." And they went to his office, and he said, "Listen, the path that you want to choose is not an easy path. If you're going to convert to Judaism, you're going to have to be a full Orthodox Jew. You can't pick and choose your mitzvahs. You have to do all the mitzvahs. You have to keep everything, and it's not easy. When the time comes to choose between the world or the mitzvot, you choose always the mitzvot. If you have a great job opportunity, but you work in Shabbat, you can't work in Shabbat. This is going to be
Mm.
your life. Not only that, but you have to understand that you're going to be the most hated person in the
Mm.
world. Everybody hates the Jews. Everybody persecutes the Jews. They will hate you just because you're Jewish, without even knowing you. So my husband says, "Listen, I'm Puerto Rican. We've been persecuted anyway. You've been up in school anyway. So
Right, right.
it's fine. I'm used to
Wow.
it."
Wow. He
Okay.
wasn't deterred. Yeah.
Very determined. He said,
Mhm.
"This is the way of life that I want. Nothing moves me from it. I search for it for ages. I want to do it." So the Lord says, "Okay, so let's do it." And they started the conversion in, I think, the beginning of 2011. And that was the time when I discovered Judaism in
Oh,
Boston.
wow. Wow, you're both discovering Judaism and you're both getting connected to it. Isn't that
Right.
something? The
Yeah.
2
So
souls coming together. Wow.
right, right. So he's starting the conversion, and he learns everything. My husband is very smart. He catches everything very instantly. He's a big chiropractor at the time. He makes a lot of money, works in a clinic. Everything goes great. And in the meantime, I'm on the other half of the United States trying to,
Right.
do my teshuva and, work on that. So we both are discovering ourselves on a whole new level. And then in 2012, if I remember correctly, after learning a lot of Judaism, the Beit Din in New York decided that he's ready to convert.
Mhm.
So they scheduled the date for dipping in the to immerse in the mikveh, which is the Jewish bath, and become a Jew.
Mhm.
But Hashem had other plans because I was new into Shuva. I wasn't ready yet. So a week before is immersing
Vision.
in,
Mhm.
in immersion. Um, he goes through a car collision. He was with his son in the car, and they were parking somewhere, and somebody hit him from behind, and that collision was enough to wipe him out. He
Mm.
got a really, really severe concussion. He couldn't remember where he was. He couldn't read. He couldn't write. He didn't remember to take a shower or to eat. He had to put a lot of alerts in his phone. You know, like now you need to
Oh,
eat.
wow.
Now you need to take a shower. He lost
Wow.
his job. He lost his house. He went from, you know, like from a state of talking normally to a state of almost like a vegetable. Like it was very, very hard,
Mm.
and he couldn't function. He lost everything. So the Beit Din, you know, the organization in New York that actually converts, said, okay, we have to stop the conversion
Mhm.
because you
Mm.
can't function as a Jew. You can't function as a human
Mhm.
being at all. The
Mm.
doctors told him that the situation is severe and they don't know if it's gonna uh, be better.
Mhm.
And he was stuck because he
Mm.
can't function, he can't be Jewish, he can't work, he can't do anything. You know, he's
That
all
must have been
dependent.
so hard for him. He's so, like, so ready to take the plunge, and then that's such
Yeah,
a setback.
yeah, he
Wow.
became a total dependent on the community which he lived
Was he
within.
frustrated?
I'm sorry.
Was he frustrated? Was he
Very,
angry? Like, "How did God do
very not
this?" Yeah,
angry, not angry, but he was very frustrated. He was like, okay, what am I doing now? I mean, I lost everything. Doctor says that it's not gonna be better. I don't know what to do, you know, and he just lost his life dream basically.
sure.
So my husband is very
So
determined, very strong will. What he did, he went to both doctors, regular doctors, but also he had a lot of colleagues in the alternative care, you know, a
mhm,
lot of chiropractors, acupuncturists. So he worked with both of the worlds, and surprisingly, he was starting to make a progress and heal. It was a very, very long journey, especially with learning Torah, because he had to repeat like dozens of
relearn everything.
times.
Right.
Yeah, every word. You know, like he had my rabbi used to sit with him. Our rabbi used to sit with him on a pasuk for like hours. You know, like every single word again and again because he can't, you know, catch it.
Mhm,
But slowly by slowly, he started to make a progress to the point where they said, okay, we think it's time to renew the conversion. So they're starting all over again, and that was in 2012 during that year. And 2013, that's when he's going through the conversion again, and in the meantime I'm in Boston. And in August 2013, um, I'm changing companies. I'm leaving my girlfriend, you know, like my friend who was a girl, and I'm moving to a different company, a bigger company where I can make more money. And I'm befriending with the owner. It's wonderful, making a lot of money. And then I decided to go visit Israel. First time as a religious Jew. My parents never saw me. I haven't been in Israel for 4 years. They never saw me with skirts and, you know, long sleeves and all of that. And it's time to go back home. And my boss slash friend, he tells me, listen, when you come back, you don't come back to Boston. We're going just for the Christian holidays. We're going to go to a little town that is called Columbus. It's in Georgia. It's 3 hours from Atlanta. And usually these small towns are really good for sales because they don't have really big malls. So when you bring something new, it's a lot of money. So
mm,
that was a good ground to make a lot of money in the Christian holidays. So I said, we're going to go there for a few months, you know, like until January, and then we're going to go back to Boston and continue with our lives. I'm like, okay, fine. The family that I did teshuva with, which went with me all the way, um, they told me not to go. They said, you've been in teshuva only a year and a half or so. You're still very fragile. You can't go to a city where there's not even shuls, there's no community. You need a community to support you. It's going to be very dangerous. You're going to lose everything that you work for. You know, I was very strong minded. I was like, no,
mm,
I'm just going to make money. It's fine. I'm strong. Come on. I learned so much. I'm keeping Shabbat. Nothing can break me. And I was very, very determined. And so it was that I went to Israel for 2 months, and I came back in October 2013 to the city, Columbus, Georgia. And I landed there. And the first thing I wanted to do is, to call the nearest shul to ask them, where do I shop for kosher food? When are your services? Find a community. That's what Jewish people do, find a community. That's the first thing. And I called them. I found their number online. And according to my questions, she says, "You're an Orthodox Jew, aren't you?" And I said,
Mm.
this is how innocent I was. I said, "No, I'm Jewish." She said, "No, I know, I'm Jewish too, but you're Orthodox." I said, "I don't know what Orthodox is. You're a shul, right?" She said, "No, we're Reform." I said, "What is Reform? Are you Jewish or not? I'm confused." So she had to explain to me the difference between Reformed Jews and Orthodox. And I said, "Okay, listen, can you just tell me where to shop kosher food?" So she said, "I can't because, I don't really know." But there was a couple of years ago, there was a Chabad rabbi that used to come
Mm.
here and try to give classes. Nobody really listened to him. Nobody's interested here. But I still have his number. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
the Chabad rabbi, Rabbi Eastern Yu from Atlanta, I called him and he's like, "What are you doing in Columbus, Georgia? Do you know where you at? This is like the Vegas of the South. Like, you don't want to be there. This is not a place for a Jew." And I said, "Listen, don't distract me. I came here to make money. I have a mission. Just tell me what I want to, what I want to know, how to keep kosher." And so I said, "Why don't you come to Atlanta? Come every week. Stay by us." I'm like, "Are you crazy? This is 3 hours drive and I need to work at Motzai Shabbat. No way. When Shabbat is over, you're going back to business." So I said, "Okay." He gave me instructions, and every single week he used to call and tell me, "Come to meals, come." I'm like, "No, I need to work. Forget about it. I'm just getting off the store for a few hours and then I come back." I was so strong minded. I knew that I would survive and everything would be okay. But I was wrong because I
Mhm.
was all alone there. At the beginning, those companies that you work for, those kiosks in the shopping mall, they rent apartments for the employees. That's one of the benefits. So at the beginning, I got an apartment of my own, which was very convenient because I could keep kosher and everything was fine. And my friends who worked with me in that company, they were totally secular, but they wanted
Mhm.
to please me. So I used to
Mhm.
get off from the store at, let's say, 6 o'clock on Fridays. They used to tell me, "Yeah, we're getting off at 9 or 10. We'll come and eat with you." And I used to
Mhm.
cook all Friday, and I used to prepare the table, like 11 or 12 plates with cups and napkins and tons of salads, only to sit there by myself because they never came.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
slowly by slowly, it's starting to crack your
Your
confidence.
determination.
Yeah. And at some point, my boss decided that he's adding two roommates to my house, to my
Mhm.
apartment, because he needed the room. One of them was very far from Judaism. She used to cook non-kosher pork and all of that stuff. And not only it brought a bad smell to the house, but also I had to lock my dishes and kosher,
Mhm.
purify the sink and the counters all the time and the stove to make it kosher all the time. The other one was single and she kept bringing boys to the apartment. It was horrible. It was not the best setting for a religious Jew. And I started to break down. I started to be
Mhm.
desperate. I was lonely. I was very sad. I started to be depressed. And at some point I broke down and I called to that father that helped me, the father of the family that helped me to do the shuva, that gave me the book. And I was hysterical. I was crying. And I said, "I'm 34 years old. All I want is to
Mhm.
get married. This is what Judaism teaches us. It's all about the family. I want to build a house. I want a home. I want to have children. I want to have a husband. Why does Hashem do it to me? Why am I
Mhm.
here? Why did He leave me? I did the shuva. I worked hard for that. I'm a good person. I'm doing mitzvot. Is this the reward that I am getting?" And I was so hysterical. I was crying. And when I relaxed a little bit, he told me, "I have one thing to tell you. God never puts a test on a person without giving them the strength and capabilities to stand in it, within it. If you'll pass the test that He put in front of you right now, and you'll succeed and you're not going to break down, he will give you 10,000 times more than what you ever dreamed of, but you have to pass it. And he really gave me strength. So I said, okay, I returned to God. I said, I'm sorry. I drifted away a little bit. I'm coming back to you, God, and I started full force again. And he heard me. God heard me. Um, because the next morning, my boss told me, hey, listen, I'm driving to Atlanta to pick up a new employee from the airport. Would you like to join me? So I said, sure. I never been to Atlanta before. I read about it in Gone with the Wind, which is my favorite, book, but great. And the minute that we drove to the inside the city, I felt something. I was with him in the car and I'm like, I think I need to move here. So I said, what you talking about? We're just going to the airport. I said, no, seriously. There's a call in here. There's something that's waiting for me here. I don't know what it is, but I need to move here. And he said, we're not moving here. We're going back to Boston where the big bucks are. There's no money here. I said, no, you don't understand. It's something, there's faith here. I don't know. Something is calling me here. So we argued back and forth. And then I was his best salesperson. So I said, listen, I'm moving here. I'm going to move with you or without you. You can come with me or I'm moving alone, but I'm moving to Atlanta. There's something here for me. So he said, okay. Let's finish the Christian holidays, do the big bucks, and then move and try a few months here, and then we'll see. I said, okay, good. We went back home. That was just before Hanukkah. I mean, the first candle was, I think, maybe a week after or something. And I remembered, we used to live in a complex. The apartment was in a complex. There was a sunroom there. And I remember that Hanukkah came. And I remember that I learned from somebody, sometime, somewhere, that in Hanukkah, every day that you light the candle, if you pray really, really hard to Hashem, then He'll give you what you want. So I used to go back from the store at like 10 p.m. in the night. I used to tell the other girls, okay, I'm closing the sunroom with a curtain. That's where I'm lighting my menorah. Nobody enters there. This is my room with God. For 30 minutes to an hour, don't enter. And I used to enclose myself behind the curtains and I used to light the candle, first candle, second candle, third candle, all the way to the eighth. And with every candle that I used to light, I used to sit on the floor and I used to pray really, really hard. And I used to say, Hashem, God, please, all I want is to get married. You want it too. I want to have babies for you. I want to be religious Jew. I want to raise a family for you. Keep Shabbat kosher with my husband. Please send me a husband. Please send me somebody. I don't want to be alone anymore. Every night, every single night. And when December was over, we moved to Atlanta, and we got there around I think it was like mid-January. That's where we moved there. And actually, I searched for Chabad. That's what all Israelis are looking for when they come
Of
to
course.
Chabad is everywhere. So I found a special Chabad that was only for Israelis. Only Israelis went there. And I was like, yeah, I'm around Israelis. Great, family, wonderful. It didn't really click. I didn't like, the crowd there. It wasn't my style. But I went there for a few weeks. They tried to introduce me to, I mingled really fast, created connections within a couple of weeks. And they introduced me to a guy, tried to, match make me. It didn't work. But that guy said to me, he said, Ayella, you're very spiritual. And I said, yeah, I really like to learn Torah and I love Hashem. And yes, I really like Judaism. He said, this place doesn't fit you. You need something else. There's another shul just across the street. And I said, which shul are you talking about? I passed there maybe hundreds of times. I never seen a shul because that shul is within inside a business building. So I said, yeah, there's a shul there. It's called the Kehila. It's a Karlibach shul. The rabbi is really, really cool. He used to live in Israel. He's American, but he speaks Hebrew. He's really wonderful. He sings all the time. He's also a singer. He has, discs and CDs and records and whatever. You should go there. It's really, really fun. You're going to love it. So I said, okay, is it a Sephardic shul? Because I'm Sephardic. So he said, no, it's Ashkenaz shul. I was like, I said, listen, it's not my style. I'm Sephardic. I'm davening Sephardic. I'm on Sephardic. He said, no, no, you really have to try it. It's wonderful. So back and forth arguing, he said, listen, if you want to get married, you have to go there. So I said,
Mm.
why? He said, because at that time they were existing for like 6 years, because they married off over 25 couples at the time in
Mm.
6 years. Now, funny enough, okay, at that week that he told me that, I said, okay, fine, I'll call the rabbi next week. I'll get hosted and I'll inspect it. I mean, I'm getting hosted by different families anyway every weekend because I'm single. I was 35 years old already, and I was determined. Okay, on this next Shabbat, I'll call the rav. I went to work. I worked all week in the mall, right in front of Starbucks, very busy mall. I'm trying to sell my products. And my sister calls in the middle of the week. My younger sister, we're three in the family. I'm the eldest. My sister is the sandwich girl,
Mm.
the sandwich daughter, and my brother, he's the little brother. So she calls me from Israel and she tells me, Ayella, I want to give you a good news. I met a guy. I think that we're going to get married. So I'm standing in the middle of the mall, busy, busy, busy mall. And I'm hearing that. And of course, I'm so happy for her. Wonderful. But wait, what about
You want it for yourself, right? Sure.
what's going on here? Like, so I broke down. I started crying in the middle of the mall. And I raised my hands to heaven and I said, Hashem, that's it. In Hebrew, we say, Igiu mai mad nafesh. The water came up till here. I can't have it anymore. If you don't want me to get married, that's fine. I'm here for you. I'm here to serve you. But you have to take the pain. You can have both,
Mhm.
either or.
Mhm.
That Shabbat, that Friday, when I called to the Rav, and of course he agreed to host me, I went up on Friday to the synagogue to daven, and I entered, and everybody were praying. They didn't see me, and I looked to the men's side just to see if there's something interesting.
Right.
Everybody were American. It wasn't my style at all. But then, far away on the first row, I saw somebody who looked kind of like me, Sephardic,
Mhm.
and I saw on his back. I said, "Wow, who is that?" But I didn't
Mhm.
know because I couldn't see him. So when the prayer service was over and I went to put my book back on the shelf, he just popped and he introduced himself. He says, "Hi, I'm Jay." And when I looked at him, I couldn't talk. I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's my husband." I
Oh,
couldn't talk.
wow.
He had to say a
What
couple of
why
times.
what made you what did you ma what made you feel that way?
I just felt it
You just
clicked.
felt it.
I looked at
Just a
him and I'm
soul
like,
connection.
wow, that's him. And that was at the end of February, like 2 months after Hanukkah. And he had to introduce himself a few times, like, hello, hello. I couldn't speak. It was him. And the
Wow.
next morning, I sat with the rabbi. We had coffee before going to the synagogue. And the Rav, I was already 35 years old. He said, listen, don't be don't be in desperation. I know that you're 35 years old. We're gonna marry you. Everybody gets married in my shul.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, I know who I want. You have this guy, Jay. Make it happen. And I said, okay. But he couldn't because my husband wasn't converted yet. He had 3 months left to the conversion. So we
The
couldn't really
vision.
date. He had to finish his businesses and then I can join to the picture. So we just talked. We got to know each
Mhm.
other. And then 3 months afterwards, in July, he immersed. He went to the Jewish purification pool, the
The
mikveh,
mikvah. Mhm.
and he dipped, and he became Jewish. And he came to the mall with his suit and tie, and his bangs are all combed to the side, like good boy. And he came to me and he said, "Shalom, I'm Chaim Yakov. What's your name?"
Wow.
And I was so like perplexed. I'm like, "What, Jay? What's going on?" And he said, "No, not Jay. I'm Chaim Yakov." And then I remembered. I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, it's in conversion day. Oh my gosh, Mazel Tov, happy birthday." So he said,
Right.
"Excuse me." He was so determined to do it by the book. He said, "Shalom, I'm Chaim Yakov. What is your name?" And I said, okay, I'm Ayella. Nice to meet you. He said, hello, Ayella. Can I ask you on a date?
Oh,
And of
wow.
course we can. And we went on a first date that night. And the next night, he took me again on a date and he proposed.
Oh, wow.
And we got
Wow.
married a couple months later, a day after Yom Kippur. So
Wow.
like usually on Yom Kippur, it was a Sunday. Yom Kippur at that year was 2014. It was Shabbat. So we got married on Sunday morning, and ever since then, I transformed my wedding dress to a skirt, and ever since then, every Yom Kippur, at the last prayers of Yom Kippur, which is the most important prayer, it's called the Ne'ilah prayer, it's the lock-in prayer of Yom Kippur, I wear that skirt. And I say to whoever asks why I wear it, I said, well, yesterday I got married with God, and tomorrow I'm getting married with my husband. So,
Wow, that's
yeah.
so beautiful. Wow, that's incredible. What looking back at your whole story, what message would you like people who are listening to take away from this? It was an incredible journey that both of you had, and you both came together. What message would you like people to learn from that?
Well, the message is, and that's what the Torah teaches us also, the power of prayer is enormous. We can
Mm,
literally bring people from almost the dead because of prayer. Prayer is very, very powerful. But along with prayer and the pleading to God to help us, we have to do our own effort. So
mm,
the journey to seek the truth, honestly, the truth, like when you find the truth, be honest with yourself and actually accept it and try to adopt it to your life and adjust to it, combined with the prayer, will bring you everything that you want, all that your heart
wow,
desire. That's what I did. That's what my husband did.
really
We
beautiful.
seeked. Yeah.
Wow. And now where do you both live?
So now we did an aliyah 2 months ago to Israel. We decided on that after October 7 because we decided to bring a little bit joy and happiness to Israel. So we settled in Ashkelon and we're trying to do some kiruv work here and, bring some new energies to our people, lift them up because, the entire country is in PTSD. We're not because we were in America. So
Right.
we're trying to blow some life, bring some new life, and we're trying to work on a family. We haven't been blessed yet. We're still waiting. So that's the next stage.
Beautiful. I want to bless you that you should find total happiness. You should build a family together, and you should continue to inspire people with your incredible story.
Amen. Thank you
And
so much.
continue finding greater and greater meaning in your life, that
Amen.
meaning that you were searching for.
Thank
Thank you. That
you.
was a beautiful story, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always beautiful to hear such a sweet story with such a happy ending. It's always so nice to hear these kind of stories. It just makes your day. What I found particularly interesting with this story is how it wasn't only one person that was involved, it was two people, and how both of their journeys, it's incredible how you see God's hand leading each of them in their own way. And each of them probably was like a little disappointed at some points in their life about why things were happening to them. Jay, or Yakov, was probably so disappointed when he had that concussion and that car accident. But as Ayella mentioned, she wasn't ready at that time. And at points in her life when she wasn't ready, he wasn't ready yet. So it's just so incredible when you kind of see the picture coming together of how these two souls are connecting. And I guess that should give us some hope in our own lives, whether it's someone who's trying to meet their soulmate or whether it's just someone on their own journey in their own life, just to realize that the circumstances and the journeys along the way and the turns and the slides as we go through them are somehow meant to be. There's a purpose to them, and they are bringing us to the destination of where we're all meant to go. So that's the takeaway that I got from this incredible story with Ayella. I loved how she explained the different parts, what attracted her to Judaism, to Yiddishkeit. It was also incredible to hear how she was right there learning in Israel. She was living in a place where it would be so easy for her to learn about what Torah is, what Judaism is, and yet she was completely oblivious to it at that time. And sometimes it's time that leads us to where we need to be. And also sometimes it's our own quest. She spoke about the quest for prayer and the quest for actually doing things while we're praying and making the change in our lives that we're ready for. So that was another important takeaway from this interview. If you enjoyed this interview, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. You can find us as well on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, and all podcast platforms. Drop us a like, write us a comment. I'd love to read each and every one of your comments. I'd love to hear what was your takeaway from this interview. What did you like about it? And what are your thoughts? Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this extraordinary community.